Welcome to Lead Different.
What if the next great innovation in technology wasn't about keeping people on their phones, but helping them build stronger marriages? Welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Today's guest, Marc Reaum, transformed his own faith journey into a mission-driven startup that's changing how Catholic singles meet, connect, and begin praying together from day one. After teaching himself software engineering while working full-time and raising 4 children, Marc built Zelie, a Catholic dating platform designed to create authentic relationships rooted in prayer, commitment, and purpose. In this conversation, you'll hear how discipline, faith, leadership, and perseverance help Marc turn a simple idea into a growing movement that's helping strengthen marriages and families. Subscribe and join us to learn what it means to lead different with Marc Reaum. Let's dive in.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello and welcome to the show, Marc Reaum. It is so good to have you on the Lead Different podcast to talk about this amazing new dating app that you have created. We've been in touch for about 6 months and we've gone back and forth, and it's so good to finally have you on the Lead Different podcast. This is definitely a situation where you are leading different. You are creating something that's different, outside the box, and something that I think will benefit a lot of people. So welcome to the show, Marc. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am happy that you're here. You're in we're talking to you in Michigan. How's the weather out there?
It's getting a little nicer now. It's starting to get some green grass, and so we're getting excited. The kids are outside, and yep.
Yeah, I love that. You know, Michigan is great about 6 months out of the year, right? And if you like snow and winter and cold, and I think it's important to have all 4 seasons. But for me, I'm a golfer, so as much as I can play golf, the better. And that doesn't happen year round in Michigan, does it?
No, it's either winter or construction season out here.
Yeah, no kidding. And yeah, you got to get your construction done when the weather is good. Well, Marc, one of the reasons I'm having you on the show is, we like to feature leaders who are leading groundbreaking and new things, and they're leading different. And one of the things that you're doing is you're reinventing Catholic dating, because you've created a new app, and it's called Zelie. I'd love for you to just give us an introduction to the Zelie app. What is it, and what makes it different? And then we'll get into your background a little bit more, why you started it. But what is the Zelie dating app?
Yeah, so we started Zelie because we noticed there's a lot of great Catholic dating apps out there right now, but there was nothing that introduces prayer to the matches once they start a relationship, or even just start talking. So we wanted to come up with a way to start couples praying together right away. My wife and I did that when we started dating and we were engaged, and we've had so many blessings in our life. So we thought that'd be a perfect way to get couples doing that, is to start a dating app and build it around prayer.
And you mentioned you and your wife did it, and so it's a case of one, right? Normally don't start a whole business based on an N of one. I'm sure you've talked to other people that incorporated prayer into their dating, and then what convicted you to say this is going to be part of the dating app of that I create?
It was really, kind of just looking back at everything that all the blessings we had. We have 4 beautiful children. I've been blessed with a great job. We've been able to provide. Talking to other couples who've started said prayers on their first date, and all the blessings they've had throughout their marriage and relationship. We think it's a very important thing to start. And if you start early, it'll be that much easier to start praying with your kids, when you have kids eventually, and keep it going throughout your life and your marriage.
That's a great first response. And I appreciate that you made it, you had the experience, and then you put it in to your work. And then you talked about, it goes into the future. It works. If you start your dating with prayer, then you involve it as a married couple. And then when the children come, you're using it with the kids. I love one of the things, as we were getting to know you, one of the things you talk about is you have a vision to use technology, not just for connection, but to support authentic relationships and long-term commitments that are rooted in faith and purpose. Marc, how'd you get here? Where does this strong faith come from? What led you into this path, and then what led you to incorporate it into the work that you do? Tell us. How about you take us back to young Marc, early professional career, and how are you're here writing code and creating an app that's going to change the way Catholics meet other Catholics, start their relationships, and eventually become married couples who pray together.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess it all goes back to around 2014. I was kind of lost back then. I was working at an automotive factory in Detroit, and it was a good enough paying job for a single guy. I worked swing shifts or midnight shifts. So I was off and on at odd hours, and a couple of years later, I met my wife, and in 6 months we got engaged, and we were married just after that. And then I was still at the same job. And then, baby 1 and 2 and 3 come along. We had, 3 under 3. And suddenly I wasn't, making the bills as I should. The money wasn't providing as well as it should. So I knew I needed to find something different. And I looked at a couple different jobs, something else in the automotive industry. I looked at some medical stuff that I was interested in. And I remember being on the couch one night, and I was looking through Instagram, and an ad for an app popped up called Memo, and it teaches you how to code. I'm job hunting right now. Why don't I just check this out? So I downloaded the app, and I wrote a couple lines of code. And I remember looking over my wife and telling her, I really like this coding stuff. I bet I could make a career out of this. And like right there, it just clicked with me. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. We took a couple days and prayed about it. And from there, it was like nonstop. I would work my job at Ford and then come home and study all night. I did that for about a year and a half before landing a really good job as a software engineer at a finance company. And then that kind of from there, I knew I was going to keep writing code. I loved it. I enjoyed my career a lot. But I kind of wanted to do something bigger. And I think one night my wife and I were kind of reflecting on things, and we were talking about how, when we were married or we were engaged and dating, I was working at the same factory, weird hours, midnight shift, but we always made time to pray together whenever I would get off, whether it's 1:00 in the morning or 7 in the morning or whatever. We would call and we would say a rosary and a Divine Mercy Chaplet together every single day. And that conversation and then thinking about code kind of led me to think, I should build a Catholic dating app that can kind of combine the way we met. My wife and I met on Catholic Match, and can combine the dating and the praying together. So.
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy, Marc, because I'm hearing this story. So what were you doing at the Ford Motor Company? What was your job?
We do, I was a technician, so I did that lab. They do fuel economy and emissions testing. So we put prototype vehicles on a chassis dyno. It's like a treadmill for vehicles. Hook it up to analyzers, and then you'll drive a trace right in the building, and get analytics from there. So
pretty simple. There's a job, the task, and you needed a human to do it. Probably AI is probably figuring out a way to do that nowadays.
Yeah.
So that was the job you were at. It wasn't paying enough. You knew you were going to get married and you wanted something a little bit more. What's crazy is you saw an ad for an app, and we all see these ads. So you saw somebody said, "Hey, we'll teach you how to write code." And then you wrote a couple of lines of code, and you found it's like, holy cow, I'm good at this, and I like it. I've never written code in my life, and I'm old enough, Mark, that we started with DOS. The first computers we had to write like 10 commands to get the cursor to move over one space on a black screen with green text. You know what I mean? So I remember those days, and I think that said to me, I never want to do this for a living, because what's it going to take to get that dot to move all the way across the screen? But you figured out a way. You wrote a few lines of code, enjoyed it, and said, "Hey, this is something I want to do." To take that, and then one more thing. So you take that course, you start studying, and then you convert that into a job as a software engineer. So I know there are a bunch of people that paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to college to graduate with a computer programming degree or an engineering degree. I know you didn't invest that much, and then you turn that into an opportunity, into a job where you actually write code for a living. What was you don't have to give us specific numbers, but what was the income bump from that?
Oh, it was.
And give me as an X, is it 1.5X, 2X, 3X?
Yeah, 3X for sure. So, and then,
wow.
It's improved since then too. So it's been a great, amazing opportunity.
And what was the ROI on the investment? How much did the course cost? If you look at the course cost versus your how much you made, was it like a 100X?
Easily,
investment?
Yeah. It was $200 for the course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So,
So there you go, guys. I love that. And one of the things you mentioned is that I think is really important, and it's built into what you do, is you and your fiance at the time. Was it your fiance at the time? You guys prayed about it, and you said, "Hey man, I think I can do this. I think I like it so much." And you can't, I don't think you can overemphasize the fact that you loved it. You enjoyed doing it. I think at the end of our life, we want to do ththings we love to do that we're good at. And it sounds like you're good at it and you love doing it. So, wow, I don't want to give a free advertisement. Who knows if the app even exists anymore, but how many years ago was that, Mark?
That was, so I've been writing code for 3 years now.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, you're sitting on your couch watching sports or something, or scrolling on your phone, an ad comes up and it changes your life.
Yep. And then from the app, I took, Harvard University puts out a CS50 class. And that was like my big class that I finished. It had, study sessions and assignments. Actual Harvard faculty would grade your assignments. And so that was a great class that I went through, and that really prepared me. I did projects at the end that I was able to show employers, and that's really what got me started.
Man, that is just such an amazing, really cool origin story. Well, now you're launching the Zelie app, and you wrote this yourself. And you mentioned your wife and you met on Catholic Match, right?
Yep.
And so what was missing there that made you say, you know what, this can be done better?
Yeah, Catholic Match it's a great system. The one thing like we thought would be nice is not having to like why not be able to pray right inside the app? Like it'd be great to be able to, just send something, you can say it together, instead of like trying to schedule around busy work schedules and everything else. Zelie is built to make it very easy to just send one and say it together and get it done for the day.
And as I'm thinking about this, so that's not a part. What else is in Zelie that people are going to say this is way different? Because you and I had in a previous conversation, we talked about there's not enough depth in the questions that are asked in some of the current apps. So what are some of the things that are in Zelie that aren't in the other dating apps that allow people? I think you're more specific in the questions you ask around prayer life and that kind of thing. So tell me about that.
Right. So a lot of the other, especially Catholic and Christian dating apps out there, I think they have, when you're onboarding, so when you're filling out your profile information and telling the app who you are, there's 4 questions usually around your faith life. With Zelie, we wanted to really, it's a little longer onboarding. We have 45 questions pertaining to your faith, ranging from all kinds of things. So we wanted to get really in depth and really when you look at somebody's profile, you want to get a really good initial idea of who they are, just from their preferences and their, we have lifestyle preferences and your about your faith life. And then in addition to that, we built a feature that we call introduction videos. Upload a quick 30-second video of yourself, just make an introduction so your match can kind of see your face, talking, see your facial expressions, hear your voice. Just another way to kind of get to know each other. And then on some of the secular apps, they have these prompts. So they're little questions that you answer. We built in videos for that too. So you can answer with text or you can answer with a video. So it's just another way to really see that person in another dimension, rather than just reading their bio, looking at their pictures, seeing their preferences, you can kind of hear and see them as well. So.
Yeah, this is so cool. So your wife and you met on a Catholic dating app. Are you guys both in Michigan?
She was in Ohio. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We were about an hour away from each other. So.
Okay. So you're an Ohio-Michigan relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to ask who'd you root for in the championships, right? In the NCAAs.
Yeah. I'm not really a football guy, but it would have been Michigan. I think my grandpa would have some words if it wasn't Michigan.
And you guys are in the Michigan basketball team, just won the national championship, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's good. Well, I love that you brought that up because there's different levels of practicing your faith, right? You can say, well, I'm a Christian, and okay, what does that mean? Well, I believe in Jesus Christ. Okay, well, that's great. But are you somebody that goes to mass every day or once a week, once every major holiday, or are you and I think that's one of the things that asking more questions helps you understand whether you're a match for that person. Because if you're somebody that's just starting on your faith journey, let's say you're a lapsed Catholic and you haven't gone to confession in 10 years, but you want to come back, maybe it'd be good to meet someone who's also on that in the same step of that journey versus somebody who is ready to, find someone who is also going to daily communion and all the other stuff. Is that some of the issues that the more in-depth questions get to? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we ran, before I ever wrote a single line of code for Zelie, I wanted to understand what are the complaints that Catholic singles have with the current apps that are out there. And so I put together a marketing research survey and passed it around. And I found that one of the biggest complaints was there's no profile depth. There's no, you can meet with somebody and think they're going to be great. And then, you find out maybe they're not in the same spot in their faith journey that you are. Maybe they don't go to adoration, or, they're more of a holiday Catholic where they just go on Christmas and Easter.
Right.
So we wanted to be able to ask deep enough questions to really give people that fit, that idea while they're meeting people on the app.
That's so important. What about the other thing that's interesting is you did this while holding down a full-time job.
Yeah.
So how do you there's an amazing amount of discipline that you must have to get this thing done. 4 kids?
4 kids. Yep.
How old are they?
They're my oldest is 8. Second is 6. My youngest daughter's turning 5 Sunday, and then my son is 2. So they're
8,
all very
6,
young.
Yeah, 8, 6, 5, and 2.
Yeah.
Full-time job, launching a new company.
Yeah.
How do you manage all of that?
It's all done overnight. So my work hours for Zelie are like they've been about 9 p.m. The kids go to bed. So I work 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's always been my hours. And it's been rough because I get up to go to work at Ford as an engineer for, around 6:15, I get up for work. And so I've been getting a couple hours of sleep for the last year and a half. But yeah, it's something I kind of developed. I did the same hours when I was learning to code.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's easy to do when you're young and strong like you are. Where does that kind of discipline come from? Because I can't tell you how many people I know that would love to do what you're doing, and then they hear, oh, you go to your regular job, you come home and you spend time with your family until 9 p.m. and then you start working your second job from 9 to 2, and then you sleep and you got to get up at 6 for your job once again. And how often you do that? I know you've got a background. You ran ultra marathons.
yeah.
So tell me, how do those two connect, and what are the lessons you take from running ultra marathons and preparing for those to this discipline that you've had over years now to learn to code and then to build this app that you're launching?
Yeah, I did run ultras for several years. I think like starting off with when you get really excited about something, and then like I did with running, I started off really excited. I hadn't run in years. I listened to a podcast about an ultra marathon, and it got me started. My first year I ran, 2019 was my first year running in 10 years. And 2019, I ran my first 10K, my first half marathon, my first marathon, and my first 30 mile, all in a year after not running for 10 years. And again, that was all done. That's kind of started my overnight training that I used for learning to code and building Zelie, what was with running. And then the following year I ran, I ran at Mohican 100. I ran 50 miles in 15 hours. And then the next year I ran another 50 miles in 12 hours. But when you're 38 miles into a run, you've been running since 4 o'clock in the morning, you really, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn, I pushed myself through that run all the way to mile 50. I can push myself to 2 a.m. tonight to, finish this bug or get this last feature out, or, write this last email, whatever. That kind of all started it for me, is I learned a lot about myself doing that. And it's been very, very helpful, learning that discipline for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine that's, I can't, I ran marathons when I was younger, and I thought 26 miles was a long way to go. You're talking running 50, and then 100 miles. How long does it take to run? And I know they're different based on terrain and stuff, but how long did it take you to run your Ultra 100?
The cutoff time was 31 hours. Wow. So I made it 15 of the 31. So I have a dream. There's a series of 200 milers out west that I've dreamed of running since 2019. You run 3 of them in a row, a month apart. It's the Triple Crown. Wow. And I haven't trained in a couple of years, but I'm keeping that dream alive. I'm going to run those someday. So
I suppose the training, because I remember when I was running marathons, you got to run. Yeah, I mean, you got to just put miles in, right? But I don't suppose you run, you never train, you never run 100 miles in practice. So walk us through, for those of us that aren't familiar with running ultras, what does the training look like to get ready to run 100 miles in 15 hours?
Yeah. Training was, so I did heart rate zone training. So I would stay in, if anybody's familiar with heart rate zones, beats per minute. So I would keep my beats per minute like about 125, stay in zone 2. The longer you train that way, your heart will strengthen and you can sustain that pace for longer and longer without tiring out. So I would do 3 or 4 days in zone 2 and then do 2 days of speed work, and just maybe the 7th day I would have a long run. Long runs could go up to a marathon, usually 20 to 26 miles for a training run. And then usually you taper off like 4 weeks before the actual race.
Yeah. And so you're building, you're recovering from the training so that you can do the actual race, right?
Right. Yeah. It's a big recovery process. Yeah. So
man, I'm sure that helped you, because I've got to imagine you've had times when you said, you know what, I'd like to get some sleep. Tell me about, was there ever a time, or maybe more than one time, where you said, you know what, I think I'm going to quit and then go do this. So as you were building the Zelie app, tell us about a big challenge or a time when you said, you know what, I think I'm going to just go full time and start sleeping.
Yeah. So there was many times with bugs when I would have a bug in the code that I could not fix. I didn't have anybody to ask how to fix it. And I would just instead of spending nights like building out a feature, I would have to spend them reading about how to fix this, or reading about the languages that I'm writing the app in, and trying to figure out like what I'm doing wrong. And that part to me was just like, it got so old. I did not want to be like reading and researching. I wanted to be fixing things and writing. And there was definitely some nights like that I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
But I learned how to push through stuff like that. I guess another big one would be, we had a competitor that launched months before us, and the people behind them they do have a very big following. They have great connections. And at the time, I think I was still building my onboarding. So it's still like the very beginning of the app. And they were already launching. And I remember calling my wife and saying, I don't know that there's really a point to like continuing. And we kind of talked about it, and she was like, yeah, I'd really like you to start sleeping again. And then I took a couple days. We decided to take a couple days and pray about it. And I kind of realized that it's not really about, like, there really isn't a competition between these apps. There's more like, we're all working towards the same goal. We all want to get Catholic singles in relationships and married, and strengthen the church that way. Because, the family is going to be the most important thing in the end. And that's ultimately all of our goal is the same there. So after praying about it, we really had the thought that we're going to really focus on our users and what they want. We're going to focus on getting a lot of feedback and just building the best app for our users.
I love that focus. You don't focus on your competitors. You focus on, I'm a big believer in abundance. It sounds like you are too, Marc. There's plenty. There's 1.2 between 1.2 and 1.7 billion Catholics in the world. Yeah. And they're not all, and there's probably a high percentage of them that are looking for a lifelong partner and spouse, right, to begin a family with. And so there's a lot of young people. You'd be a great person to ask this question. There's this resurgence in the Catholic Church right now. Yeah. And we're seeing it with Gen Z. I think you guys are probably just on the tail end of it, or maybe the beginning end of it. But what is it that's driving people to church and to Catholic dating apps and to being committed. We don't hear so much about. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't read a news story or see a news on YouTube or a clip of the Catholic Church just growing. And there's a big article about one in New York that's like a nightclub. They're just people are going there to pray at night instead of going out. So what are your thoughts on what's caused the shift? And then obviously you're at the right place because instead of hookup culture where people are just meeting and having meaningless relationships, you're helping them find lifetime relationships. So what do you think is behind the resurgence in faith?
I really think that especially Gen Z and younger millennials, they see the state of the world and they see how bleak and bad things look. And I think that they're looking for meaning and they're looking for tradition and commitment. They're looking for all that stuff. And, that Catholic Church is really the best place to find that. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it. Our little parish here in Rockwood, last year we had 4 people come into the church at Easter last year. We were up to 19 this year. Mm-hmm. It's been huge. So.
Yeah. And like I said, you're seeing that everywhere. What's the dream, Mark? Tell us about the dream. If everything goes perfectly, where do you see Zelie in a year, in 5 years? Let's go with that for now. Let's go. What's it look like a year from today? And we're having you back on the Lead Different podcast to give us an update. What are you telling us? What are you telling us about?
Yeah. Well, the goal is Zelie. I like to think of Zelie as like the intersection of guided prayer apps and dating. Okay. So we're gonna really put down hard on that. In a year, I'd like to be running Zelie full time. Have plenty of users, have some great success stories. My marketing team has a couple really, really good promotions coming up that we're going to run. And just a lot of really exciting stuff. We have some integrations with other apps that we're working on. Very exciting stuff.
Nice. So you're integrating with other apps. You're growing. What's the goal? Do you have a number in mind in terms of people? I mean, what's the number one app right now? And how many people do they have on?
I would say Catholic Match is probably still number one. Yeah. And they say 1 million active users.
Okay.
So
are you looking for 1 million in the first year?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. 1 million in the first year. So where should people go? Where are they going to find the Zelie app?
We're most active on Instagram. Okay. So you can find us at Zelie Dating. And then we have a landing page with our wait list at zeliedating.com. And then we're also on Facebook and YouTube at the same name. So
perfect. Hey, this is a great time to ask this question. Zelie, tell us, for those that aren't, those of us that don't know about Zelie Martin, tell us about the name, how you came up with the name, and where the inspiration came from.
Yeah. So my wife and I were sitting in the living room one day. We've been praying about names for days and days, and we made a big list of like 25, 30 names, and we had checked them all off. I don't like this one. And then we're like, well, let's, if the app is really going to be about prayer, we should maybe incorporate a saint in the name. So I looked up the patron saint of married and engaged couples, and it was Saint Zelie. And that kind of clicked with us both at the same time, that's definitely the name right there. She was a beautiful example of a holy relationship and living for your spouse and living to get your spouse to heaven. And, ultimately they did.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. I was reading, I'm trying to remember, and it's not going to come to me, of course, because now that I brought it up, but it's, it'll come to me later. I'll probably just bring it up. It'll hit me in the middle of another question that I'm asking you.
Right.
Let's talk about leadership though. And you know what, one of the things I definitely want to talk about, Mark, is, as we do with all of our guests, and as I'm talking to you, I really see this in you. We had you take the YOS Discovery, which, we're Why Not Leadership. We talk about leading different. We work with leaders, and we want to help people understand themselves. And when you took the Discovery, one of the things we noticed is your why is to make sense of things. And what we know about people who have the why of make sense is they love solving problems. And they take problems that exist, and they can take a lot of information in. They're really good at taking in lots of information, looking at it, analyzing it, and coming up with a solution. And that's exactly what you did. Here's the problem. I don't think the current dating apps have the depth that I would like to have seen. That when I met my wife, I wish I'd have known this about her. I wish she would have known this about me. Or maybe you had some hits and misses, right, before you guys met each other. And so you saw that problem and you said, okay, there's a solution to that. So people with the why of makes sense tend to be problem solvers. You solve that problem. Your how, as I look at your profile, is mastery. So people with the how of mastery are people who like to learn things at a deep level. They're not surface level learners. So, and when you talk about you found this app and then you learned how to code, I'm sure you didn't that wasn't the only thing you did. You probably learned everything you could about coding so that you could get to your final part of your why operating system, which is to simplify, to explain things simply and easy, make things simple and easy to understand. So I think we're going to see all parts of that. There's the make sense, solving the problem. There is the mastery that it took to build the app. And then you deliver a simple, easy to use program that anybody can use. Does that sound like you, Mark, when we look at that? And we didn't get a chance to do a debrief beforehand, so I'm kind of just throwing it out at you. But you're someone, what we know about Mark, if we go by your results, is somebody who loves to solve problems. He solves problems by learning as much as he can and coming up with solutions with depth, breadth, and knowledge and then you deliver something that's simple and easy to use.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think why I connected so much that first day with coding. When I originally discovered the app, is that's all coding is solving problems, figuring out different ways to do things. And because there's a million ways to code something. There's different languages, there's different functions and variables and tons of different ways to do it. Learning all that really gave me the depth as well, the mastery. And then I was able to build something that, you get a lot of depth out of each profile because you use.
Yeah. And I like that, the simplify. Rarely do we see mastery and simplify together, because mastery is all about getting all the information as much as possible, and simplify is about like, hey, just give me what I need. So when you have the two combined, which you do in a profile, you have somebody who has a lot of depth but is able to explain it simply, and so that people can understand it and not overcomplicate things, because there's a lot that's going on in your head and that you understand that about coding. And guess what? The people that are using the app don't care, right? They just want to know, hey, what button do I click so I can find someone near me that is practicing the faith the way I'm practicing it and is close enough to my age and has similar goals, all those things that are important. I don't care how many years it took you to write the code or how difficult it was. Let's keep it simple for the users. Is that a feature that we're going to see in the app?
Yeah, I've always said that you understand something when you can explain it simply and tell people about it. Yep. And so my wife, me going through learning everything about coding and then building it, she could probably tell you just as much about it as I can. Just from hearing me talk about it and learning it, the whole process that we've been through. So,
yeah. And I'm sure, you've mentioned the living room has been a central key part of this throughout, right? That's where you found the app. That's where you sat and prayed on whether or not to continue, especially after your competitor launched ahead of you and had a lot of support. What's been the biggest, thing that's kept you going? When those things happen, and you get discouraged. I know you've mentioned, you and your wife getting together and praying through it. What's the one thing that keeps you focused on the goal? Because I think, it's a cheesy quote, but everybody says, obstacles are those things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. What's kept your eyes on the goal throughout all of this?
I think the love of the problem is, that we're trying to solve too, is I don't think I've ever like professionally done something so meaningful in my life as building Zelie. It's something that, my wife and I had a great experience with Catholic dating and Catholic dating apps. We met and got married, and we want to give everybody that experience and make it better on top of that. It's just, it keeps me going. It's just the meaning of it. I love anything I can do with Zelie, any kind of work I can do at all is the best.
This is really good. Marc, this is the Lead Different podcast. So we're going to talk a little bit about leadership.
Sure.
And you don't do this on your own, right? And as you grow, you're going to have even more people that are going to be depending on you to get things done. What would you say is the biggest leadership lesson you've learned in the last 5 years as you built this company and this app for people who desperately need it, and we're hoping to see 1 million sign up within the first year?
Yeah. Leadership. I think learning to delegate things has been a big one for me, because I like to, I like to learn everything about a subject, and I like to kind of come up with my own processes and ways of doing things. And being able to delegate some of that stuff onto my co-founder and advisors has been really helpful for me, because, I can go back to focusing on my own stuff and know that that's being handled. Really staying organized with things helps me a lot. If I know where everything is, what I'm doing the next day, it really helps me kind of plan ahead of time and be able to do things correctly. I lost your audio, Dan.
Well, let's see if you can hear me now.
Yep, I can hear you now.
One of the challenges that I know, we've done this with over 3,000 people, with people with the why of make sense, because they're so great at problem solving. And let's do some real live coaching here. Is because you tend to process information faster. And you're a computer guy, so it's like you have a Intel 5 processor or 10 processor, and everybody runs around with a 3. You know what I mean? And so one of the things that I know, and I share that why as my what. So I'm familiar with it. You tend to, since you process information faster, you can take in information, come up with solutions quickly. You tend to be a little impatient with people who don't get it. And so you have to explain things maybe more than once, because for you it's like, hey, X plus B plus Z equals Y, and that's how it is. But somebody might have more questions than that. Have you seen that within yourself, and how do you overcome that I guess impatience that sometimes we have with people who don't process information as quickly as we do? And how have you learned to temper that? That's one. And then the second part of that is, when you're that good of a problem solver, everybody comes to you to solve their problems. So then delegation becomes hard, because everybody says, well, just take it to Marc, he'll figure it out. So how have you learned to overcome that impatience and to have patience with others and help them understand without making them feel dumb, because sometimes that happens, right? And then secondly, how do you learn to help people solve their own problems so you're not the bottleneck in the company?
I try to, like, if I'm explaining like a complex topic to somebody that they'll need to do the process, I try to give them all the parts of the problem and the solution, and try to kind of steer them towards coming up with the right way to do it on their own.
Right.
Instead of like doing a lot of hand holding. I feel like for me personally, like if I come up with it on my own, the solution on my own, it sticks a lot better and I can work through it a lot better.
Right.
And that, I think, going back to being self-taught, I think that's why I really excelled at being self-taught instead of going to college for programming. For the second question, I had a fantastic boss at one of my previous jobs, and his kind of leadership style was, you can come to me whenever you need to with a question, ask it as many, ask your questions, whatever question you have. But I expect you to write it down and only ask that question once. And after that, you can take it from there. And that's kind of the way I do things too. So it worked great for me. I really connected with that way of doing it. So.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, you talked a little bit about delegation. One of the lessons you learned is the importance. You can't do it all on your own. And as founders, those of you who are listening, you know that it's hard when you've written the code and you started the company. This is your baby, and nobody, right, Mark? Nobody can do it as good as Mark can, because you built it. Darn it, in that living room between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. But you have to learn to trust the people that you hire. What's a secret to delegating effectively that you have found that helps you not have to do everything and allows you to let your team thrive and do what they do best?
I think giving them tools, giving them enough tools to work with, enough documentation is big for software engineers. Give them lots of documentation that makes sense. Give them opportunities to ask questions. Especially having peers around that kind of know parts of it or all of it, encouraging collaboration among, other workers is a big one.
Yeah. So I love that. People sometimes just need more information, right? And you mentioned it earlier. I think it's a great leadership trait that you help people kind of solve their own problems by asking questions and being curious and saying, okay, well, what would you do? Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I've heard this, and feel free to agree or disagree, but I've learned that when people come to you with questions, especially when you're the leader, a lot of times they have a solution. They're just wanting you to approve it. So they, if we ask good questions, they'll say, well, I was stuck here, and here's what I thought we could do. And they'll tell you what their suggestion is. And you're like, whoa, I would have never even thought of that. Right. Sometimes they come up with even better solutions.
Yeah.
How do you let go, Mark? What's the key to letting go and trusting? And I'm sure it has a lot to do with hiring the right people, but for you, I think, leaders who delegate and who trust tend to be more successful because they're not having to do it all themselves. What's the key to hiring the right team and then giving them the power and authority to do things so that they can do those greater things than we can and even surprise us, right?
Yeah. I think there's got to be a good process for stepping up employees in responsibility. So starting them off, maybe, when they're new in the career, starting them off with something small, letting them become extremely proficient at that. And then making sure they have a good handle on that before you move them up to the next thing. I think stepping stones there is the big thing. Same way you train for ultras is it's mile by mile. You don't jump them up to something else just because the gap needs filled, a responsibility needs done. I think really empowering them to build up is the key there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. A lot I see this, as a leadership coach, as I'm working with leaders, we see people get promoted all the time based on their capacity to do their current role, right? So you take your best coder and you make them the manager of the coding team. Well, they're just really good coders.
Yeah.
They may not
That happens a
necessarily
lot.
be great leaders, right? And that
Right.
happens in every profession. You take your best lawyer and you make him, the leader of that specialty in the law firm, and they don't want to be a leader. They're just a really great lawyer. And
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that we're looking for people who can lead. And if they can't lead, we want to find out if they want to lead, right? That's the
Yeah.
other part. They may
That's, you got
not
to ask
want
that
to be in
question.
charge, right?
Yeah.
And my career has always been in sales, and we did the same thing with salespeople. If they were good salespeople, well, they're going to be great sales managers. No, not so much. Not always. They just happen to be
Right.
really great salespeople, and you're taking your best salesperson out of the field where they're making a ton of sales, and now they're not making sales, and they're not helping anybody else make sales because they're not great leaders, right? So I think it's important to look at, and I love what you said. You develop them and you make sure they have the skills. What's a leadership philosophy that you have that has held true for you and helped you in as you become more of a leader and less of a doer?
Yeah, I think building stepping stones, working my way up. Always sit back and pray first, do research on decisions, make sure you're considering whether you're talking about your family or your company. Consider everybody's perspective, and what's best for the company and for everybody involved. I would say those are definitely the biggest.
Yeah. I love that. One of the things that we know is a challenge for people with the how of mastery, because you like to learn things at such a deep level. And one of the challenges is what we call paralysis by analysis. So where have you gotten stuck where you're like, I need to learn more. I cannot make this decision till I know everything I possibly can. And how have you overcome that?
Yeah, that's exactly how I do it. Some nights I'll spend down here working. I'll spend 3 days reading about a concept for a feature that I'm going to build instead of actually writing anything. And it's sometimes I have to step myself out of it because I'm like, I know what I need to know now. Am I going to continue doing this, or am I just going to build it and it's then reevaluate?
Yeah.
Yep.
You have a great combination because the make sense in you wants to solve the problem. So you're going to go and read and learn as much as you can, and then you're going to simplify it. Is it a trick for you? I know a lot of people use deadlines. They just say, you know what, I'm going to research, but I'm only going to give myself 10 hours of research or 2 days to research. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to make a decision based on that. Because you can always make a new decision based on new information. But that uncomfortable feeling of like, oh man, did I research enough? How have you overcome that?
Yeah, I really should start using the deadline method, because I just I'll do it until I'm confident that I know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do something. I'll just do all my research until I'm 100% confident, and then I'll go after it. But I feel like sometimes I take that a little too far. I'll kind of get the paralysis like you were talking about.
Right.
Instead of making the move. Yep.
Yeah, because we, one of the in the pre-questionnaire, we asked the question, what part of yourself did you have to reclaim to lead the way you do now? And you said the part that likes to read and research and pray about something before making a decision, even when the deadline is close. So even when that deadline is close, you're like, come on, I'm going to read one more article or one more, one more author or one more opinion on it or one more different way to do it, right? Because you want to make sure you have the best. But what's great about that is we know that the Zelie app is going to be well done. It's going to have depth and breadth, and you're going to ensure that you're using the best possible ways to bring people together. Do you have a goal in terms of number, couples that you want to bring together? I know we talked about, hey, it would be great to have 1 million people using the app. But tell me about what's a dream story? If we're here a year from now, what's a dream testimonial that you would love to hear from somebody?
Well, I can let you in a little early. We have a promotion coming up that we want to get 100,000 couples to pray together in 2026. So that's kind of our very big goal for the year. Yep. Meet on Zelie and pray together.
Perfect. That's a great goal. So this is a dating app, but are you encouraging people to stay on and pray? Because what I really like about it is because it's a praying app for couples. Once you meet and you're together and you're married and you have 4 kids, you can still get on and pray together, because I assume the app makes it easy for you to do that while you're maybe taking your break at the factory, and your wife's at home with the 4 kids. Maybe there's a break that you guys do that. Tell us about how that functionality works, or so that you can keep people, not just, because then if they come on and then they're gone, well, then the business doesn't do so well. But if they stay on because they're praying together using the app, I can imagine that that's going to be a helpful feature for everybody.
Yeah. So there's no paywalls around anything relating to prayer in the app. So you can always come back and continue sending prayers to each other. And then one thing we built in is once you're matched with somebody and praying, you can both enable a relationship mode. So instead of seeing a browse feed of other singles, you'll see prayers that can be sent back and forth. So you can very easily share prayers with your match back and forth, even after you're in a relationship or married or, have kids down the road. It really becomes the guided prayer app from there.
Man, that is so really cool. Mark, we've had a great conversation here. I've really enjoyed just learning more about the app, learning about the world of coding, and I'm so glad people like you exist, because I like getting at my computer and just typing stuff in, asking questions, and getting them, and then just getting answers, and things work. StreamYard works, our recording app, all of these things work. So you're a much needed resource in this world. Is there something that I haven't asked that you want to make sure we talk about today?
I think we did a great job and covered it all. Yep.
Yeah, you are. Congratulations, Mark. I cannot wait to hear. We're going to schedule. Let's see. We're going to probably air this in June, July timeframe. We're going to have you back next summer, and we want to get an update from you and hear how things are going, and definitely talk more about your leadership growth. And you're going to have a much bigger team. You're going to have hundreds of over 100,000 couples praying together. So it means 200,000 people. So we really appreciate you being on, guys. Don't forget, where can people go? Tell us that website again for the landing page.
Yep. It's the landing page is zeliedating.com. And then the same on Instagram, we're Zelie Dating.
ZelieDating.com, and Zelie Dating is where you can find Marc Reaum, and you'll see his shiny mug there and talking about things. We really appreciate you being on, guys. Leave a comment. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share the episode. Subscribe to the channel. I can't tell you how many times I meet people and they say, Dan, I love your show. I love listening to your interviews. And I say, are you subscribed? And they're like, no. Well, please do. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube. So if whatever app you're on, and we're on all the podcast apps. So make sure you subscribe, leave us a good review. If you have any questions for Mark, put it in the comments, and I'll make sure and get a hold of him and get an answer for you, because he's a really smart guy. And I know that there's not a question that he probably, if he doesn't know the answer to, he'll research it and get back to you. So Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm glad we were persistent and we got you on the schedule, and we finally got this interview done. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a great time. I'm really happy we finally got to connect. Yep.
Thank you so much, Mark. Have a great rest of your week, and good luck with the launch. I can't wait to see you guys in the number one apps for dating list as those lists come out. I want to see the Zelie app right at the top. So congratulations on the launch, and have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thank you, guys.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.